The wind was sharp like knives. The sky above was full of heavy gray clouds. Ash and snow mixed together and fell slowly. The old city was dead. Only bones of buildings stood tall. Rian walked carefully, his boots crunching on frozen ground he wore. A heavy coat full of patches, his hands were cold even inside thick gloves. He had only one thing in his pocket, his last ration card food for one day. Maybe two. He planned to find something useful before heading to the trade center. His eyes kept moving, scanning old cars, broken windows, frozen trash. Suddenly, he stopped. There was something in the snow near an old store. It was not metal, it was not stone, it was a body. Rian walked closer, slow and ready to run. Then he saw it clearly. It was a woman, but not human. Her skin was light blue, like moonlight on ice. She was wearing thin silver clothing. Nothing for this deadly cold. Her hair was white like the snow, her face calm like sleep, but her lips were turning gray. Her fingers stiff. Rian knelt beside her. She was breathing, very slow, very weak. Her chest moved just a little with each breath. He looked around. No one else was there, just silence and cold wind. He could leave, he could save his card and walk away. But he did know, pulled off his thick coat and wrapped it around her. She was ice cold. She did not wake. He lifted her carefully. She was light. Lighter than any person he had carried. Maybe her bones were different. Maybe she was almost gone. Rian walked back through the ruins. Holding her close, he reached the hidden entrance to his shelter. It was a small bunker under the ground. Only he lived there. Alone since the war ended, he laid her on the sleeping mat. Near the small heater, her skin slowly turned less gray. He covered her with 2 blankets, then he sat and watched hours pass. Rian opened the metal box and stared at his card. He sighed, then got up and left again in the cold street. He went to the old trade center. People stared when he walked in. No one spoke. He walked to a stall and placed the card down. "I need warm clothes. Small size?" he said. The trader looked at him with one eyebrow up. "Not for you." Rian nodded. Once the trader brought soft wool clothes, warm boots, gloves, and a scarf. He placed them in a bag. "You'll be hungry later," the trader said. Rian said nothing. He took the bag and walked away back in the shelter. The woman was moving. Her eyes were shut tight. Her hands pulled the blanket close. She was fighting something in her sleep. Rian placed the clothes beside her. Then he sat down and waited again. A long hour passed. Then her eyes opened. Bright silver eyes like starlight. She looked around fast, like a bird waking in a cage. Her eyes found Rian. She did not scream. She looked at his face, then at the clothes. She tried to sit. Rian helped her. She touched the coat around her and then the blanket. She opened her mouth. No sound came. Then she whispered one word, "home." Rian blinked. He did not know what that meant, but she said it again, this time with tears in her eyes. "Home." Rian looked at her. He did not ask questions. He picked up the bag and gave her the clothes. She looked at them, then at him slowly. She reached out and took them in her arms. Her fingers shook as she held the boots close. She tried to stand, but her legs were too weak. Rian caught her before she fell. She leaned against him. She whispered again, "Home." Rian looked at the small fire, at the cold outside, at the empty shelves. He looked at her, lost, strange, not from this world, but somehow still human, in pain. He nodded slowly. Then he spoke, quiet like the snow. "Come home with me." The shelter was quiet outside. The wind howled like a sad animal inside. The small fire gave a soft, warm glow. The woman sat near it, wearing the clothes Rian brought. Her hands were close to the heat, her eyes watching the flame like it was telling a story. She had not said more words, only "home" again and again, but now her lips moved silently. She was thinking, maybe remembering. Rian gave her water. She took it with both hands, drinking slowly. She coughed, just once, then breathed easier. Her body was healing. Little by little, Rian sat across from her, not too close. He wanted to speak, but he waited. He knew silence was sometimes safer than questions. She looked at him, then she pointed to herself. She touched her chest, right above her heart. "Aura," she whispered. Her voice was soft like music underwater. She said it again, "Aura." Rian nodded. Once he pointed to himself. "Rian." She tried to repeat it. "Rian." Close enough, eh? Small moment passed. No fear, no words, just names. She picked up a broken pencil from the table. Then she pulled a piece of cloth from the bag. She began to draw. Her hands moved fast but smooth. Circles, stars, lines like paths. Rian leaned in. She pointed at a large circle. She touched it gently. Her eyes met his. "Home," she said again. So this was it, her world far away, broken maybe. She drew another small shape, like a ship with wings. She made fire behind it. She pointed down, then made a crash sound with her mouth. Rian understood. Her ship crashed. Maybe no one came for her. Maybe they thought she was dead. She touched her shoulder, then her hand made a small circle. She placed it flat on the floor. Rian looked at the motion. A device, maybe a machine. She reached into the coat from a hidden pocket. She pulled out a silver object, small, strange, glowing weakly. She placed it on the ground. It flickered, then went dark. She looked sad. One tear rolled down her cheek. Her hand rested over the device like a mother protecting a child. Beacon, Rian whispered the word. She looked at him, nodded slowly. A broken beacon, her only way home. Rian stood and walked to a shelf. He pulled out a box full of old wires and chips. He placed it beside the beacon. He pointed at himself. I fix. He pointed at the beacon. You home? She stared at him, then she smiled, first time since she opened her eyes, a small smile, but real that night. Rian sat with tools in his lap. The beacon opened like a flower inside. It was strange, not human tech. But he tried anyway. Old skills came back. Hands remembered what the mind had forgotten. Ella watched him. She did not sleep. Her eyes were full of questions and hope and fear. At some point, she moved close. She took a small piece of metal and gave it to him. It fit. It worked. A quiet spark blinked inside the beacon, only for a second, but enough. Rian looked at her. She looked at him. She placed her hand on his. No words, no need. He knew now. She was more than a lost alien, more than a widow from the stars. She was a story, a secret, a spark waiting to shine again. Rian, a man with no food, no family, no future, had just become her only chance, and maybe she was his too. The morning light touched the cracked roof of the shelter. Soft golden lines spilled over broken stone and quiet wires. Rian had not slept. His hands were black with grease, his eyes red with focus. The beacon lay open on the table. Alien symbols glowed faintly inside it. Breathed like a small heart, alive but weak. Aura sat near the wall, her knees pulled close to her chest. She watched Rian with quiet eyes. Her fingers moved across the cloth she had drawn on yesterday. She added stars. She drew a shape beside her world. Small, dark. She crossed it out. Rian looked up. What is it? He asked without speaking, just with his eyes. She showed him, pointed to the crossed-out shape, then made her fingers into claws, pressed them hard into her palm. Enemy, danger, hunter, her people. We're not alone in the stars. Someone else had followed, someone cruel. She tapped the beacon, then pointed at the sky, then drew a circle around her head. Pointed again at the stars. Rian understood. The beacon was not just a signal, it was also a crown. A sign of her role. Aura was not just anyone. He stared at her longer now. Her silence, her control, her stillness. Even in fear, he whispered low, you were somewhat important. Aura did not answer, but she blinked slowly, and that was enough. Later, Rian went outside. The snow had stopped. The cold had moved quickly through the city ruins. He needed parts, real ones. Human tech might still connect with alien wires. He reached an old repair station. Doors frozen shut. He used a crowbar and broke through inside. The air was dry. Old machines slept in corners. Wires like vines hung from the ceiling. He found what he needed, a battery core still working. Barely as he turned to leave, he heard something, not a voice, not a footstep, just a weight in the air, like someone was watching from behind the walls. He stood still, breathing light, ears open. Nothing moved, but something had changed. He left fast. Boots crunching on frozen ground, eyes scanning the buildings. Every shadow now felt alive back at the shelter. He placed the battery beside the beacon. Aura helped him. Her fingers worked fast. She knew this tech may be better than anyone they connected. The power. A low hum filled the air. Blue light spread from the beacon like soft waves. Zip blinked. 1, 2, 3. Then a small screen opened. A strange map filled with star points. One of them blinked red. Rian leaned forward. Aura froze. Her hand trembled. She pointed at the red dot, then tapped her heart, then whispered with fear, Hunter. The signal had gone out, but not just to her people. Others could see it too, and one of them had already found the trail. Rian shut the beacon. Dark again too, late outside, far in the distance. A sound rolled across the snow, low, deep, not natural. A ship or something worse. Rian looked at Aura. She was standing now, her face calm, her shoulders straight. She was ready for what was coming, even if Rian was not. She picked up a small object from her pocket, pressed it into Rian's hand. It was her memory crystal, glowing faintly. Like a piece of sky in his palm, she touched her forehead to his soft like a thank you, without words. Then she turned toward the door, waiting for the past to find her again. Night came without stars, only clouds, only cold, and a sound beneath the silence. Rian stood at the shelter door, hand on the old metal handle, his ears catching every small echo in the wind. Something was near, not human, not lost, but hunting. Gelra sat, with her hands on her knees, her eyes closed, but her mind far away. The beacon now stayed dark. The crystal in Rian's pocket felt warm, as if it remembered something, as if it was afraid. Then it happened. The sky lit up with a flash. A shadow passed over the frozen city, sharp, silent, like a knife made of fire. It was not a rescue ship, it was something else. It did not land. It struck a blast, shook the ground. Dust rained from the roof. Rian grabbed Aura and pulled her behind the table outside. A shape walked through the ash, tall metal armor, glowing red eyes behind a silver mask. No footprints, no sound. The hunter, he scanned the earth like he could smell fear. He was not in a hurry. He knew who he wanted. Inside, Rian loaded an old pulse gun, barely working, but better than nothing. Gelra reached for his hand, stopped him. She looked deep into his eyes, then touched the side of her neck. A small scar there. She whispered one word, marked. Rian understood. The hunter was not just chasing her, he could track her. Her body held the signal. Era pulled the crystal from his coat. She held it tight, then slammed it on the floor. It cracked. A sharp light filled the room, then silence. The mark was broken, but the hunter had already arrived. The roof cracked, a sound like thunder, then silence again. Dust fell like snow. Rian pulled Aura toward the back door, a tunnel hidden under the heater. They crawled inside, cold metal walls around them, no light, only the sound of breath and heartbeats. Behind them, the shelter exploded. Fire bloomed into the sky. The hunter did not speak, did not scream, did not stop. He moved through the flames like a shadow made of steel. Rian and Aura ran through the old sewer, water frozen at their feet, rats, long dead walls marked with signs from the old war. They reached the exit, an old hangar in the edge of the city, hidden beneath layers of dust and time. Inside, Rian dropped to his knees, breathing hard, chest burning. Gelra stood still, her face calm again, but her eyes full of storm. She turned to him, held out her hand. He took it. Then she spoke, her voice clear, her words slow, her truth sharp. I am not just lost, I am last. Rian stared at her. She looked different now, not weak, not frozen. She was fire wrapped in snow. Rian asked nothing. He just nodded, because deep down he already knew. And above them, in the cold black sky, the hunter waited, silent, watching, ready to strike again. The hangar was dead. Long wings of broken ships rested in the dark. Old metal birds that never flew again. Paint peeled from the walls like dried skin. Air smelled of rust and silence. Rian closed the main door, used chains, used a plank. Not enough, but it had to. Dora moved without sound. Her fingers touched the engines, her eyes scanned wires. She was not looking for escape, she was remembering. This was not the first time she had hidden in ruins. She sat beside the wall, took off one glove, placed her hand on the cold ground, closed her eyes. She whispered something in her own language, soft, slow, like a goodbye. Rian watched from the corner. He was thinner now, face sharp, hands trembling. He had not eaten in 2 days, had not smiled in 5. He opened a can, the last one, split it between them. She took her half, held it for a second, then passed it back. He shook his head. She pushed it toward him. He took it, but something inside broke. Outside, the sky was not safe. The hunter was still near. He had not attacked again, but that was worse. Waiting, watching, planning. Aura sat beside Rian, her voice soft like old snow. My kind, we build things from stars, but some build weapons. He was one of them. Rian did not ask more. He knew enough. She pointed at the broken beacon. It needed power, not just any power, high current, steady stream only. One place left had that, the military base 10 miles north, guarded by time and death. Rian pulled out a small map, drew a red line with shaking hands. He looked at her, then back at the map. We go, he whispered. Tomorrow. Aura nodded, then reached for his face, her fingers cold, her touch kind. That night, they didn't sleep, they just sat, backs against cold steel, hearts against old fear. Far above, a small drone passed silently, its red eye blinking. Once the hunter knew where they were, but he waited. Because hunters enjoy the chase more than the kill. And home, for both of them, was no longer a place with walls. It was the space between two people, holding on when everything else was falling. The wind was not just cold tonight, it screamed. It pulled at skin like claws. The sky above the dead road cracked with thunder, but no rain fell. Only dust, only ash. Rian moved fast, but not strong. His legs shook, his breath short, but his eyes never left the old towers ahead, the military base, tall walls, rusted gates, once a place of power. Now a grave. Aura walked beside him, her coat pulled tight, her face calm but her fingers clenched. She held the beacon close to her chest, wrapped in a cloth. Like a sleeping child, they reached the side entrance, a door half broken. Rian pushed it open with his shoulder. The hallway inside smelled of oil and forgotten blood. Darkness waited in every corner, but they moved forward. Step by step, memory by fear. Rooms full of machines, panels still humming, generators blinking in sleep. The power was still alive, but so was something else behind them. The hunter followed, silent, precise, without mercy. He did not run, he did not rush. He knew they had only one place left to go. Rian and Aura reached the control room, a huge chamber of glass and screens in the center. A glowing panel pulsed like a heart waiting to be touched. Rian dropped the bag, pulled wires, connected the beacon. A spark, a beep, then blue light filled the room. Aura placed both hands on the beacon. Her voice rose like a lost song, soft, ancient, filled with codes. The signal began to rise far above. Beyond clouds, beyond Earth, a line of light reached out. Other people might hear it if they were still alive then. The door behind them shattered. The hunter stepped in, no sound, no warning, only red eyes, only slow steps. Rian raised his old pulse gun, fired 1, 2, nothing. The shots bounced off the armor like water on stone. The hunter lifted his weapon, a long staff, sharp edge, burning core. He swung. Rian fell, chest bleeding, breath gone. Aura screamed, ran to him, her hands shaking as they held his face, the beacon still glowing, still singing. The hunter raised his weapon again. Aura turned, stood between Rian and death. She raised her hands not to fight, but to surrender. Her voice shook, but her feet did not. I end it, she whispered. She stepped forward, 1 pace, 2. The hunter paused. She opened her arms, and he struck. The light exploded, blinding heat filled the room. Then silence. When the glow faded, the hunter was gone. Ash shadow burned into the wall, and Aura still standing but fading. The mark was broken, her core damaged, but the beacon still alive. Rian crawled to her, blood on his lips, tears in his eyes. No, he whispered. No, she smiled, fingers brushing his cheek, voice almost gone. Home. For you too. She collapsed, and the beacon with one last pulse sent the signal beyond the storm, beyond the stars. Asterisk. The room was quiet now, only the hum of the beacon, only the breath of a dying man beside the fading light. Rian lay on the floor, blood under him, ash around him, his hand holding hers. Cold still. He wanted to speak, but no words came, only a whisper in his heart. Please, don't let this be the end. The beacon pulsed once more, soft then bright. A sudden wind moved through the room, but no doors were open. From above the roof shook. Dust fell like snowflakes of memory, a sound like nothing he had ever heard. Not thunder, not machines, something alive, something ancient. The stars had heard her voice. A ship broke through the clouds, not made of metal, but of light and curves and quiet song. It landed without sound. Its door opened like a blooming flower. Figures stepped out, tall glowing eyes like oceans in calm. Whether they saw her, they saw him. They moved fast, but gently. One placed a hand on Rian's chest. Warmth moved through his body. Pain pulled back like a tide. Another knelt beside Aura, her body still, but her mind not gone. They touched her temple, the crystal inside her broken, but the signal had been enough. A light moved from their hands into her chest, slow, pale, then strong. She gasped, her eyes open, silver again, alive again. Rian tried to sit, his body weak, but his soul reaching. She looked at him, tears in her eyes, and this time not from fear, but from something else. She reached for him, and he, for her. The tall ones turned to him. One spoke in broken human words. You saved our queen. Rian blinked. He looked at Aura. She looked away shyly. He smiled, or maybe cried. They held out their hand to him. Come. He looked back once at Earth, at the ruins, at the pain, then forward at Aura, at stars, at a future. He took her hand. Together they stepped into the ship. The door closed. The stars waited, and then they were gone. Only silence left, and the soft echo of a story no one else would ever believe, but the sky knew, and maybe that was enough.